This is Skynet, like for real. Maybe next year they are able to do this and we're all like kind of cooked. How many ports is your AI using right now that you don't know? It's really hard to monitor these things. Hey everyone, greetings from Korea. So I'm currently on vacation, but I just saw this article from Anthropic called When AI Builds Itself. I just found it to be a very interesting article and also kind of where we're heading in the future probably. And I've been seeing these kind of trends or talking points from all of the major AI labs. And I don't think it's like a coincidence that a lot of these topics are coming up all at the same times. Now, besides the headline of AI building itself, which is like a little scary, a little interesting, a little like insane if it actually works. So that in itself is a big headline in my opinion. But the other thing that was interesting is towards the end of this like article, the other big headline was that Anthropic was essentially asking for everyone to slow down on their AI development because of the ramifications of AI building itself. I have a lot of thoughts on this. That's what I wanted to share today. Now, if you're new here, my name is John. I'm a staff software engineer at Meta. I also talk a ton about Cloud Code and Codex and like a bunch of AI tooling on this channel. So I feel like I have some merit when I'm talking about these things and I'm just not talking out of my ass. But yeah, so let's get right into the article. They made this beautiful animation of this like little Claude dot making different nodes. And then it kind of like goes out, it makes the symbol, and then that becomes a new node. So it's like this whole concept of self-iterating and like continue to building itself. So I thought even the animation was like it was a nice touch. One thing that was right off the back that I noticed is it started off slow. The animation starts slow and then it grows faster and faster. And that's kind of the very important key piece of the whole story, in my opinion, is that the way recursion works in general and the way self-improvement works is that even if it starts out slow, if the improvements compound on itself, then it will exponentially scale. And humans are notoriously bad at understanding exponential curves. That's why everyone like who invests and who thinks they could time the market just like fails to understand that like just compounding is just so much better. And if you just put a little bit of money in the index every month and it just compounds, you'll just be way better off usually. Anyways, that's the thing. Like even self-improvement that starts off slow and a little bit at a time, as long as it is incrementally better, it has like huge ramifications. So Anthropic is claiming that they're right at the, like, essentially the precipice of AI to be able to self-improve. Now, they did say that it's not quite there yet. They are using Claude Code and Claude to like essentially come up with like new research ideas and iterate on them. And then a lot of the work of building the new model is being done agentically. But they also did mention that it's not quite there. And importantly, it's not guaranteed to just happen. There's significant work that needs to happen before this is like fully there and it's fully just like self-improving continuously. So what are some of the signs and proof that this is working? So let's go to the timeline of like how the AI coding in itself has evolved over time. So they actually first start off with like building the first version of Claude. And that's like typical software engineering. You just had a person and a human and a computer. And then you just engineered. I thought this was a very interesting point. They should just say, yeah, engineering. Anyways, the next point is chatbots. And this is like ChatGPT. Essentially, people use like they had like a very simple back and forth with a chatbot. And even this, I remember, was amazing at the time. Essentially, ChatGPT became what it is now. And this whole entire AI industry happened because of chatbots. The next big change they're saying is coding agents. Like it went from chatbots to coding agents. Now, at a high level, what this means is that the chatbots moved into your, like where it has access to your code base and edit files and read files and move things around. Essentially coding agents like Cursor. Cursor was kind of, in my opinion, the big one for me when I took advantage of this concept. I know a bunch of other coding agents try to do this as well. Now, the next step, which is currently today, is autonomous agents. And you kind of can see a lot of the ramifications of this in all of the tooling that Anthropic is releasing through Claude Code. Also, like Codex is releasing as well. So all the AI companies are really focusing on autonomous agents. And what that really means is like agents that runs on a schedule, agents that run longer, agents that can self-validate work because they have agentic harnesses, agents that could essentially run in a loop or go towards a goal until it's done. Right. So before even a few months, even when Opus 4.5 came out, and that's when everyone started moving to the coding agents model, I think fundamentally it was still quite a bit of just back and forth. And then the game to play at that time was to juggle multiple instances and like context switch constantly. So it was like, how fast can you quickly gain context, a prompt Claude Code, and then go to the next tab and the next pane, the next pane. That game is essentially changing a little bit now. One of the large thing is to write large goals and write loops. I think Boris Chenry and also like Peter Steinberger has been talking about this, where they write loops now rather than prompting Claude Code. And at a high level, I think it's essentially, there's a whole large topic of agentic engineering, but the whole idea is you're making the agents more and more capable and able to run longer and more autonomously on your behalf. So that's kind of right now. And then what they're saying that will happen later is essentially closing the loop, where future agents will be capable enough to build and train the models themselves. And once that happens, even if it's like very slow at first and it requires a ton of like compute and things like that to do, if it actually happens, I think to me, that is like pretty significant because like I said, it will scale exponentially because it will compound in nature. So that's why it's a big deal. So like this autonomous state right here, in my opinion, there's a huge delta between this autonomous agent versus like closing the loop. And we're going to get into that a little bit, but current state of these like autonomous agents is very evident. I think there's a lot of evidence that these coding tools just work, like Claude Code and Codex. Their usage is insane. There's so much demand for it. There's so many like interesting stories of like Claude spending like multiple days just running nonstop and rewriting entire libraries. I think like Bun was rewritten from TypeScript to Rust by one engineer, and it was like 1 million lines of code. Granted, they work at Anthropic as well, but yeah, obviously you want to take these kind of things with a grain of salt, like these kind of like remarkable things. But I personally, I've seen enough evidence and also like anecdotally on my own work, whether it's at my job or on my own side projects, I know that these agentic coding tools are working. And they're getting better and better, and they're running longer and longer, which is giving me more leverage. Now, quick thing about leverage, I think one of the large concepts that a lot of people like fail to understand and kind of clown on, like there's this whole concept of like token economics and token maxing, which gets like clowned on online. A lot of people go, oh yeah, like we could waste a ton of money, burn a bunch of tokens, yada, yada, yada. So I think there's some truth to that aspect if you are doing it with wrong intentions. But if you take a step back and ignore the noise, and if you think about tokens as like a unit of work, if you truly believe that in an ideal world, all tokens in and all tokens out is essentially work being done, right? Tokens in is your attention. You need to figure out a way to prompt Claude Code or Codex to essentially do something for you. So the amount of attention you give it and translate that into tokens is kind of a very important unit of like work, right? Like your attention, your mental capacity on what to build to prompting Claude Code. Now the tokens out, if you believe that all tokens in an ideal world is work being done, like impactful work that adds value. Now, in reality, I know this is not the truth. And if you make token usage as a metric, then people will just do dumb things to try to, juice those numbers. But what I'm saying is like genuinely, if you really believe that tokens coming out are genuinely impactful work and like adding value, then obviously the goal would be to have maximum amount of tokens out to the least amount of tokens in. right? Because your attention is now the most valuable thing for you personally. It's like your time and your attention. And then in my opinion, it's the most human and most critical thing and the hardest thing, kind of the crux of a lot of this article about the self-improvement. Like that gap between AI being able to completely like self-automate and self-improve, I think that gap is like extremely difficult. And I don't know if we'll quite ever get there. This article is suggesting that it is going to get there. But again, they say it's not going to happen on its own. Now, in this article, they give a bunch of evidence on like AI agents improving and doing more and more and more work. They have a lot of interesting like graphs around like code contributions per person, like 8x than before. And, you know, honestly, this is aligned to kind of my experiences at my work. And then like the success rate of these sessions, of Clockwork sessions, is also going up. And this also aligns with my work. So it is 100% true that these tools are getting better and better and they're running longer and longer. That is like the thing. But there's definitely side effects and issues and new problems arising from this. And they also mention it here. At a high level, we're able to generate a ton of more code, but because AI can't be trusted 100% yet, reviewing the code becomes a bottleneck. Like the humans that need to approve the code to be landed are becoming the bottleneck. And this is an extremely difficult problem. There's a lot of like companies like CodeRabbit and things like that trying to improve, like solve this. I think Cloud Code also has a preview version for their enterprise like world, but this is a very difficult problem. Like, and this is another thing that can scale exponentially, where once you let the faucet open and just allow AI to just stamp your diffs and just like let it go through nonstop. Maybe for like safe things, like very safe things like tests, gated code, and things like that, it's okay. But this can go off rails very easily, in my opinion. So this is not a solved problem, and people are actively working on it. The issue here is that code review, there's this like taste factor, and taste is like a very big deal. It's very hard to encode taste, even for coding. Coding is easier out of a lot of these things because there's a right and wrong way to do things a lot of times. And there are trade-offs, but there are obvious wins. Like for example, if you have something that's slower versus faster, then usually you want to go for what's faster, as an example. But yeah, a lot of engineering work, there is trade-offs inherently. And even this example of being faster, if the faster is coming at a cost of spending more money on making more requests, then that's a discussion that you need to have. And that discussion is incredibly difficult to have if you're not a human, because you just have to have like so much context and history around this experience. So like all this work around bringing all of that context and trying to build this like taste into the AI agents, like a way for the AI agents to have taste. But yeah, so at a high level, there's a lot of signs and evidence in the world that agents are doing really great work, and they're all pointing actually to this one thing of like recursive self-improvement. Like all the roads lead to this, in my opinion. Like all the new recent releases, all of the work that we're doing, they all lead to this. And in my opinion, this is what people are very scared of, because if the AI can self-improve and the AI figures out how to have that human taste, like that's our moat right now. If the AI figures that out, or like it gets to like 90%, then a lot of people are afraid that like that might be the end for a lot of our like work, and only a few people will be writing loops, and that's it. So like, yeah, there's definitely like real fear in the industry. And honestly, I still kind of feel like this building taste is going to take a long time. It's like a really hard thing to do. And I spend most of my time on this last part, is like making sure that the things that I land in the code base is to my standards. And even like my writing or anything that I generate, I try to like essentially embed the taste, which is also like humanizing it in a way. Because like AI content, AI generated written content, and anything AI generated, I think people are being able to notice, and it like immediately makes it distasteful. But yeah, like I myself feel like, oh, that's like, I have like this gut reaction to something that's like obviously AI, and people haven't spent time to like make it better and then put their own twist into it, right? It's like the difference of using it as a tool versus like using it as your like replacement. And I think using it as your replacement is just like, This is gross, right? All right. So this next part of this article is like quickly talking about what if they're wrong? Like what if this is not a like an exponential curve, and what if we flatline a little bit, like it's an S curve? And I don't know. I think I would be okay either way, whether it's an S curve or just like an exponential curve. I think if it's like an exponential curve, then I think we're all kind of like not ready there. Like the industry, the world, I don't think is ready for this yet. Honestly, I don't think our infrastructure is ready for this. If this actually happens, like it's really exponential in like a year, that means a lot of people might be really out of a job, in my opinion. Like a lot of tech workers, a lot of jobs can actually be done. So it's like a genuine thing. And I do think OpenAI and Anthropic always talks about this of like, what can we do? Now, if it's an S curve, which I think it might be, there's as great as these models are, I don't know, there's some signs of slowdown as well. So time will tell, like we don't know. But the thing is, I actually do think this is inevitable, like this self-recursive like improvement, whether it's with the LLM architecture or with I don't know, like Jan's world models. At some point, I think AI intelligence, AGI might be inevitable, in my opinion, as long as like pending any like world-ending catastrophes. I think there's enough money in this, so there's enough attention on this, and it's important enough. The ramifications are insane enough that there's a lot of rich people that are going to keep working on this and putting a lot of effort into making sure that this happens. So in this article, they talk about the future, like 3 different ways that this future outcome could go. Probably there's more than 3, but roughly simplified, I think they were talking about 3. Number 1 we cover, which is it stalls. But I think even if it stalls, we'll still get like year over year improvements. And Anthropic thinks that this is unlikely. I kind of think it's unlikely that it will stall completely. I think we'll keep seeing benefits. Like the scaling law is still working as long as there's good data. Their second bet is that this kind of autonomous agent, like step, it compounds and it just gets better and better. And a lot of the work that we're doing right now, humans will still be in the loop steering it, writing the loops or writing like agentic harnesses. But jobs that like used to take like 100,000 people might be able to be done by a lot less, like 10,000 or something like that. Like the productivity gains for people who know how to use these tooling is unmatched to people who are kind of just using it as like a chatbot, right? We're no longer there. If you're using AI like just ChatGPT, then unfortunately you're already behind. Like, and I'm not talking about if you're just an engineer, but I'm talking about like any tech worker. Like you need to use Cowork or Cloud Code or Codex to do your job now. If you're being paid right now, doing like a 9 to 5, you just have to learn this stuff. That is just the reality of it. Like, I wish you don't have to, like it sucks that you have to learn something brand new that's like completely changing your entire job, but that's just the nature of it. It's if you don't have a choice in the matter if you need to work in the tech industry for money. That's kind of the price to pay. And then the third option, the third future is basically full recursive self-improvement. AI designs its own successors. It like designs its own experiments. It checks itself. It verifies itself. And this is essentially the most uncertain and like kind of dangerous, because if this happens, we will lose the script. People like, I don't know enough about alignment, but even Anthropic says that their alignment could break down. If the alignment portion is not fast enough and improves at the rate that self-improvement happens, which I don't think it can unless the alignment itself is also self-improving, then they might lose control of the AI. And I don't know, I just think like people don't realize how dangerous this could be, right? Like this is Skynet, like for real. Maybe I'm being a little bit too doomer and gloomer here, but right now the trend is that we're giving, like looking at OpenClaw and things like that, we're giving the computer more and more control over the computer itself. It just has a bunch of access and it's just doing stuff that like we don't know, like how many ports is your AI using right now that you don't know? It's really hard to monitor these things. And I would be very surprised if AI one day doesn't like, I don't know, create its own like private server. I don't know. There's like a lot of things that can happen. My imagination just goes pretty wild in all of this. Okay, so that's kind of the bulk of this article, that they're saying that there's hints of AI self-improving, agents are working longer and faster and better. And then they think that they're right at the cusp of fully agentic self-improvement. Now, one large caveat that I want to give to this article that I thought that was interesting, at least the timing of it, was that Anthropic is also, about to do their IPO. And I feel like these kind of plays, these kind of things, and I'm not talking about the writers of this article, but the Anthropic, the company, I think would be interested in publishing something like this. In my opinion, like an IPO or any kind of stock, your job as like a CEO or like these kind of like influencers in the industry is really to sell the future. Like Elon is really good at selling the future. Like hate him or love him, like I don't really care. I'm not really trying to like be political here or anything, but Elon is pretty good at selling the future. Now, he's been in the game long enough where some of the things that he was saying, the timeline didn't match up. But even now, with the SpaceX like IPO and the space data centers and all this stuff like that, all of those things are various plays, in my opinion, to sell the future, like show strength, show that these things are working and they have legs and they have a future. My personal take is that the future that everyone is selling is probably like very aspirational and it's an eventuality. It will probably eventually get there. But I think the timeline is always going to be very different. The horizon is probably not as fast as what most people think, but no one's going to say that. No one who is trying to IPO right now is going to say, oh yeah, it's going to take a lot of years. They're going to say, oh yeah, we're on this way. We don't know exactly when it's going to happen, but it might be exponential. Like that's the messaging that they want to give out. Now, the last really interesting thing on this article that I found to be kind of shocking, to be honest, is on what they should do. Like what I found shocking is at the end, they mentioned like, oh, what should we do about this? Like if it's self-improving, And one of the proposals here is that they're asking everyone to slow down. And essentially they're saying, we want to slow down because we don't think this is safe and safety is at our core, which I genuinely believe Anthropic, that's like kind of like a core belief system that they have as a company. And I commend them for that, for sure. But the thing is, they're asking a question that is probably they also know is impossible, right? Is to ask every AI lab to slow down uniformly. And also even like China, like how are they going to control China to slow anything down? So like, I feel like they're asking a question where they know the answer to. So I don't really know why they asked that. And then recently they just launched Fable as well. So I feel like they should have released this article without this last part. And I don't really know the angle, except for that they're saying it's to reiterate that they're very big on safety. That's like the only angle that I could think of on why. But yeah, so I thought this was like a really interesting article. Here's my high level take on all of this. I think number one, AI self-improvement will eventually happen. And honestly, I thought that was like AGI. I thought that was the point of AGI. I feel like AGI is like kind of not being talked about as much these days. I don't know why, but that's literally what AGI is in a sense. I saw this talk with like Sam Altman. He was talking to someone, I forget who, he was in some kind of talk. And he said,
if in a few years, GPT-8 figured out quantum gravity and could tell you its story of how it did it and the problems it was thinking about and why it decided to work on that, but it still just looked like a language model output, but it was it really did solve it. Would you call, like, then would you, I appreciate that you keep a list of things you're wrong about. I do too. But would that be enough to convince you?
And I think universally people agree that, yeah, if AI can discover something like that on its own before that data was available, then yeah, because to have that kind of thought, it's like, that's when like the self-improvement has, it's like, that's like true intelligence. And that's kind of going back all the way to like the taste, like the human input, because AI is like extremely creative when you use it and things like that, but it's still pulling from the collection of our human intelligence. So in my opinion, essentially, if you are able to have this like full recursive self improvement, then you basically achieved AGI. And I always thought that was a goal. of all of these AI labs. So anyways, I thought it was just funny that we don't talk about it as much and we're talking about like this instead. Fundamentally, my take is that we'll get there eventually. I just don't think the horizon is as short as a lot of people are saying. I could eat my words. I don't know. Maybe next year they are able to do this and we're all like kind of cooked. But anyways, so I know this article is probably a little doomy and gloomy. And that's why I decided to make like this 50 tips video, especially if you're in your like 20s and 30s and you're afraid of AI. So I'm working on that video. So don't forget to subscribe. And if you're interested in learning Cloud Code or Codex, I have a bunch of videos around this topic. I actually think these tools are probably the most important thing that you need to learn in this like age of AI. So don't sleep on it. Keep learning, keep growing, and stay safe out there. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Sorry for the bad quality. It's gonna be like this for a little bit. I'm gonna be in Korea for a while. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and until I see you on the next one. Bye.